The words came so quietly that at first I thought I had imagined them. My wife's best friend was sitting in the passenger seat of my car, staring through the rain-streaked window, her face pale and exhausted. Then she leaned closer and whispered, "Take me somewhere private." My hands tightened around the steering wheel. In that instant, I knew something was terribly wrong. What I didn't know was that those 5 words would uncover a secret that had been quietly destroying my marriage, and change all 3 of our lives forever. Before we get into this emotional story, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in second chances, leave a comment, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness for more heartfelt stories about love, forgiveness, and unexpected second chances. Your support means more than you know. Her name was Emily, and for nearly 8 years, she had been my wife Sarah's closest friend. I had known her almost as long as I had known Sarah. She had been at our wedding, helped Sarah through difficult years, celebrated our anniversaries with us, and even stayed at our house whenever Sarah needed someone beside her. To me, Emily was family. Nothing more. Nothing less. That was why her request that rainy Thursday night felt so disturbing. Earlier that evening, Sarah had called me from work and asked if I could drive Emily home. Emily had apparently been at Sarah's office, and something had happened that left her shaken. Sarah said she was too busy to leave, so I agreed without thinking twice. When I arrived, Emily was standing beneath the building's awning, holding her purse against her chest. She looked nothing like the confident woman I usually knew. Her eyes were red, and her hands trembled as she climbed into the car. I asked if she was okay, but she only nodded. The entire drive was strangely silent. Rain hammered against the windshield while streetlights blurred into golden streaks across the glass. Then, halfway to her apartment, she suddenly asked me to pull over. I stopped near a quiet park, and that was when she whispered those words. I turned toward her, confused and uncomfortable, but before I could say anything, Emily began crying. She covered her face with both hands and finally told me that she wasn't asking me to take her somewhere private because of anything romantic. She was afraid. She had discovered something about Sarah, something she believed I needed to know before it was too late. My stomach dropped. Emily reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope. Inside were printed bank statements, photographs, and several pages of handwritten notes. She told me she had found them accidentally while helping Sarah organize some paperwork at work. At first, Emily thought the documents were ordinary. Then she noticed my name. For months, money had been disappearing from our joint savings account. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. I had never noticed because Sarah always handled our household finances. Whenever I asked about our savings, she told me everything was fine. We were saving for a bigger home, she said. We just needed patience. But the papers in Emily's hand suggested something very different. The money had been transferred into an account I didn't recognize. Emily had also found messages suggesting that Sarah had been planning to leave me. Not simply leave me, but disappear with enough money to start a new life somewhere far away. My first reaction was anger, followed almost immediately by disbelief. I told Emily there had to be an explanation. She nodded through her tears and said she had hoped there was one too. But then she showed me the final photograph. It was Sarah standing beside a man I had never seen before. The picture had been taken outside a hotel several months earlier. My heart seemed to stop. I stared at the photograph until the image became blurry. I wanted to believe it was innocent. Maybe he was a coworker. Maybe the picture meant nothing. Maybe everything Emily had shown me had some reasonable explanation. But then Emily told me something that hurt even more. She had confronted Sarah earlier that day. Sarah had admitted she was unhappy. She had admitted she had been planning to leave. And she had asked Emily to keep it secret from me. That was the moment something inside me broke. Not because my wife might leave me. People fall out of love. People change. Marriages sometimes end despite years of effort. What destroyed me was realizing that the woman I had trusted with my entire life had been quietly preparing an escape while I was still trying to build a future with her. Emily reached for my arm, but I pulled away, not because I blamed her, but because I suddenly felt ashamed of how badly I wanted someone to tell me this was all a nightmare. I drove Emily home, and before she got out, she told me the truth behind the photograph. The man was not Sarah's lover. He was Sarah's older brother. I stared at her. Emily explained that Sarah had been hiding something much bigger. Her brother had been struggling with severe financial problems after losing his business. Sarah had been secretly sending him money from our savings because she was terrified that he would lose his home. She had also been meeting him at the hotel because he had temporarily been staying there after leaving his apartment. The mysterious account was his. But there was still one problem. Why had Sarah told Emily she was planning to leave me? Emily's face changed when she explained the answer. Sarah had been diagnosed with a serious illness months earlier. She had refused to tell me because she was convinced I would abandon my dreams, spend our savings on her treatment, and dedicate my entire life to taking care of her. She believed that if she made me hate her, I would eventually let her go. The money she had withdrawn wasn't for herself. It had been used partly for her brother and partly to quietly arrange medical treatment she intended to undergo alone. I felt my anger disappear so quickly that it left me almost empty. Emily told me Sarah had planned to leave the next morning. I drove home through the rain faster than I should have, but my mind was already somewhere else. I remembered every strange moment from the past year, the night Sarah cried when she thought I was asleep, the doctor's appointment she refused to explain, the way she had suddenly stopped talking about vacations and started asking whether I would be okay alone. I finally understood. When I reached home, Sarah was sitting at the kitchen table with a suitcase beside her. She looked at me and immediately knew that I knew. There was no dramatic argument. No screaming. No accusations. She simply lowered her head and began crying. I walked across the room and sat beside her. For the first time in months, she told me everything. And when she finished, I realized that the woman I thought had betrayed me had actually been trying, in the most misguided way possible, to protect me from losing her. I told her that she didn't get to make that decision for me. If she was sick, I wanted to know. If she was afraid, I wanted to be there. If our marriage was going to end someday, I wanted that decision to belong to both of us, not to fear, secrecy, or sacrifice made in silence. Sarah looked at me and asked why I would stay after everything she had hidden. I told her something I had never understood before: love wasn't promising that nothing painful would ever happen. Love was deciding that when pain arrived, you would face it together. That night, the suitcase stayed unopened. The next morning, we went to the doctor together. The months that followed were not easy. Sarah's treatment was difficult, our finances were damaged, and rebuilding trust took time. There were days when I was exhausted and days when Sarah felt guilty for needing help. But slowly, something changed between us. We stopped pretending to be strong and started being honest instead. Emily remained part of our lives too, though she carried guilt for revealing Sarah's secret. I told her she had done the hardest thing a true friend can do: she had chosen the truth over comfort. Years later, I still remember that rainy night. Sometimes I think about how easily I could have misunderstood Emily's words. "Take me somewhere private" sounded like the beginning of a betrayal. Instead, it became the beginning of a truth that saved my marriage. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that love sometimes survives because people finally choose honesty, courage, and forgiveness. And if you believe in second chances, subscribe to Ripple of Kindness and stay with us for more stories that remind us never to judge a heart before knowing its whole story. Before the ending, I want to ask you something special. Comment, "Love deserves a second chance," if you believe that sometimes the hardest truth can lead people back to each other. Sarah once thought protecting me meant walking away alone. I learned that night that protecting someone you love doesn't mean deciding their future for them. Sometimes it means standing beside them when the future becomes frightening. And sometimes, the person who seems to be carrying a secret that could destroy your life is actually carrying the truth that can save it.